Welcome to another episode of Complete Developer Podcast, the podcast by coders for coders about all aspects of creating your best life as a developer.
I'm Will, the accomplished developer, author, and software architect.
And I'm Beej, the journeyman developer sharing my journey in development.
Complete Developer Podcast is supported by listeners like you. We are now on Patreon at www.patreon.com/Complete Developer Podcast.
2021 was not the year we expected, but it definitely brought about some changes in us, in the podcast, and in the people around us. As we review our resolutions, we'll see how smart our goals really were, and then we'll discuss our yearly theme after talking about our goals and resolutions for next year. But before we get started, Will, what have you been fighting this week?
I've been juggling 3 or 4 different things. I'm kind of in charge of maintaining a WordPress site at work. And so I've got to do a bunch of upgrades on that. There's team lead stuff. We have like these cross-functional teams. I don't know exactly what you'd call it, but it's not like the team we work on every day. It's a team for a specific set of stuff like system architecture, database performance, working with support. I'm on 2 of those, and then I'm on the standards team. And there's been 3 or 4 other things that have come up, and man, my meeting schedule right now is it's a bit heavy.
I get it.
I got to code for like 2 hours straight today, and I was so happy. And I'm like, wow, this is not it's not ideal. It'll get better here in a minute. It's just it's like all these things are periodic and they're different frequencies. And so every so often, you have like the wave pattern, and then you have like a big wave where 3 or 4 things hit at once. And that happened this week. So yeah, I guess it's probably the main thing I got going on. How about you?
Well, so today was an interesting day. I think I told you a week or so ago, I had a tire go out, and you have a full size spare. So I just put the spare on. So I was going to go get that replaced, and I noticed, hey, my back tires need to be replaced too. So might as well get it all done at once. Not terribly expensive, but so I called him up, and I was thinking, hey, I have an appointment, like a chiropractor appointment, scheduled like around lunchtime. So I'll just schedule it like right around then, and go to the chiropractor, and then go drop my car off and get something to eat while my car is in there. So I scheduled it at 1:30. Then that was last week. Then I looked at my phone yesterday and noticed my chiropractor appointment was at 10:30.
Oops.
So it was like, all right. So I worked until, a little after 10, went to the appointment, which, chiropractor, that takes 5-10 minutes. It's not very long at all. Went to that, and then just went and sat at a coffee shop that I really like. A friend of mine works at, so he was there, and I just sat and worked until about 1 when I took my car over to get the tires put on it, and then came home and finished out the day. But yeah, that was a little bit of an adventure. Actually, it was kind of cool sitting in a coffee shop working. I kind of enjoyed that. So, but I've been dealing with Angular routing. Well, I say routing. It's not exactly the routing, but the way it's handling is activated.
It's like activated route stuff or like snapshots.
Yeah.
Stuff.
So what we're doing is like, if we have a home component, and it displays one thing, if there's like nothing else in the URL, so there's not a route past that, and then it goes to the route outlet if there is something. And so we need to check, is it activated? But we're getting these console errors for change in that after change detection. And so I had both of my juniors and myself looking into it about an hour or 2 at the end of the day yesterday. And then we got the architect on this morning, and he proposed a solution. He put it in, and that messed with the permissions check. So his solution, while it worked, it didn't work, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
Yeah. And he was like, oh, I didn't think about that. And yeah, we're like, yeah, it just, and so we went round and round with it, and finally just said, you know what? This error only shows up in development. It's not like the app is functioning. It's just sort of a timing issue with it. So we just decided we could live with it for now and come back to it and address it later. So sometimes you have to deal with that. In more pleasant news, my sisters are coming in this week for Thanksgiving. One will show up tomorrow. The other one will actually show up on Thursday, which I realize that, this is coming out, 3 days before Christmas? About 3 days before Christmas, I think. So Thanksgiving is over and done with by the time you guys are listening to this. However, we record a month in advance, and Thanksgiving is a month before Christmas. So there you go. I think the episode coming out when we record this is the Enneagram wrap up, because we aimed that to come out on Thanksgiving Day. So yeah, we're doing Christmas for Thanksgiving because my youngest sister is pregnant and won't be able to travel by Christmas time. She's due in January. So gotten all my shopping done except for my mom. Bought my brother-in-law's gift today. Got him some Jack Daniels. It's what he really likes. So
nice.
Yeah. And my mom told me today, we went to lunch while my car was getting worked on, and she told me that she wants a metal trash can.
All right, then.
I was like, okay, I will buy you a metal trash can.
like an outdoor one, or like
like an outdoor one. Apparently some mice have gotten into her plastic ones, and so she thinks that a metal one will keep them out.
All right.
Yeah.
It's a lot louder when something else gets in there. I know where your mom lives, dude.
Yeah, I know.
That's a concern. Okay.
It's what she wants. So I'm like, all right, I'll get it for her. She may or may not like it, but that's what she asked for. So that's what she's getting.
You have to get some get some chrome polish or something and shine it up before you deliver it.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Buy a shiny metal garbage can.
Oh yeah. Saving money is hard, especially when you don't have any real goals in mind.
Lucas Casares is a fee-only certified financial planner. He owns and runs Level Up Financial Planning virtually out of Fort Collins, Colorado.
Yeah, and just like us here at Complete Developer Podcast, he focuses on helping you to create real attainable goals and take action on them so that you can live your best life.
Yeah, and investing in financial planning services really comes down to whether or not you can improve your finances with the help of Level Up. There's a compounding impact of making better financial decisions, which will easily pay for itself.
Level Up has a really awesome pricing model that will work with you wherever you are in your financial journey.
And best of all, Lucas is a fiduciary for his clients, which means he's not here to sell you a product, but to help guide you to a better financial situation. In other words, your goals are aligned.
So, guys, you can catch his podcast, Techie Personal Finance Bootcamp, where he covers financial topics you probably face and interviews other IT professionals who share how they navigated their careers. And you can also learn more at his website, levelupfinancialplanning.com.
The theme for this year was understanding yourself. We focused on a popular personality test, the Enneagram, and each month we talked about a different type. We discussed how you can use this to not only understand yourself, but also to understand those around you by knowing their basic desires, fears, and motivations.
Yeah. So we're going to do a very brief review of the 9 types. Just sort of go through this kind of quickly. Just sort of I know we did the wrap up already, but this is just sort of a final review, I guess, at the very tail end of the year here.
And Beej is saying it's very quick because he's dropping hints.
Yeah.
So the first type is the reformer. This is a rational, idealistic type. They are principled, purposeful, self-controlled, and perfectionistic.
And this is Will's Enneagram type. Type 2, the best type, is known as the helper, or in some circles, the befriender. They are caring and just a very interpersonal type. Demonstrative, generous, though they can become a bit people-pleasing and possessive if they're not healthy.
Type 3 is the achiever. They are success-oriented and pragmatic. They're also adaptive, excelling, driven, and image conscious.
They do tend to care a lot about what people think of them. Type 4, the individualist. This is the sensitive, withdrawn type. Actually, since we've done this year, I have met 3. I take that back. 3 type 4s. I didn't know anyone before starting this, and now I know 3 of them, which is kind of cool. But they are very expressive. They can be dramatic, can get a bit self-absorbed and temperamental if they're not healthy.
Type 5 is the investigator, and they are an intense cerebral type. And one of the guys that's on the Aftercast is in this category, and it definitely fits him. This type is perceptive, innovative, secretive, and isolated.
Yeah, if they're not careful, they can get very isolated. Type 6 is the loyalist. This is the committed and very security-oriented type. I know a few 6s. It's interesting. Our missions director at church is a 6. And so, having her go on mission trips and be like very, protective of the people that are on the trip with her, it's kind of cool. But they're very engaging and responsive. But if they're not healthy, they can become anxious and even suspicious of people's motives and behaviors.
Type 7 is the enthusiast, and they are a busy, fun-loving type. They tend to be spontaneous and versatile. However, when they get unhealthy, they become a bit more distractible and scattered.
Yeah. 7s are fun to be around. They really are. Type 8 is the challenger. And we've had a challenger on the podcast with us. He was passively awaiting to be aggressive, if you guys remember that episode. This is the powerful, dominating type. They're self-confident and decisive, but if they're not careful, they can become unhealthy and very willful and confrontational instead of leading.
And finally, type 9 is the peacemaker. They're easygoing, self-effacing types. One of the guys on the Aftercast is a type 9. And these people are receptive and reassuring and agreeable. However, as they become unhealthy, they can become complacent.
Yeah, if I remember, their deadly sin was sloth. So yeah, they can just be so agreeable that they don't do anything. But yeah, it's been an interesting year for us this year. Looking through, we hit several of our goals. Others we did not, or they changed due to life circumstances, and some are still in progress.
We're going to start out by reviewing this past year's goals and talk about whether we succeeded, failed, or postponed, what impediments we faced along the way, and what we did to overcome those. Next, we'll discuss our goals for 2022. For each of these, we'll rotate between myself and BJ, and then we'll go over our goals for the podcast and the network together, basically. Finally, we'll introduce the theme for next year.
Yeah. Which, hey, guys, Will wrote the theme for next year, so I'm really excited to get down to that part.
Yeah, I think it's timely.
Yeah, I think so, too. I know what the theme is, but I will be honest with you, man. I did not have a chance to go through what you wrote because I got in kind of late last night and threw my stuff in here.
Well, if you follow my theme, we'll be able to handle what I wrote.
That sounds good. I like it. All right, so we need like theme music for the review of last year. This review of this year, I guess it's still 2021 when this is coming out. But yeah, review of 2021. So my first goal was to speak at a conference again. I miss conferences. I miss climbing the wall at Vandy, playing Developers Against Humanity until 1 a.m., or sitting at the hotel bar chatting with other speakers and attendees. I also miss the thrill of public speaking. I mean, it is a bit of a thrill. It's a rush. Even if I have to change my talks or write new ones to be in online format, my goal was to submit and speak at a conference this year. And at the time I wrote this, I'd already submitted to a few conferences that had opened up their CFPs or call for papers. So the results of this one, drum roll, almost made it. I applied to several conferences that were meeting in person, but did not get selected. None of the ones where I normally speak met in person this year, so most of them I didn't even submit, or I honestly missed the deadline. They didn't announce them as much this year as they have in the past. Not physically being at conferences. That's usually where I hear, oh, hey, our CFP is going on this date, or they'll announce it and stuff. And so I just didn't hear about some of them and missed them. I did speak to the art tech group here in Nashville virtually. Our friend Katie and her husband run that group. And we met Katie through Developer Launchpad. And she ran, when we were running Developer Launchpad, she was running a writing group that we would go to.
Yep.
So
it's good too. I wish she'd start doing that again.
She wants to when, they feel safe doing it. Yeah.
Well, my first goal for 2022 was to build another product, either a book or a course. And I said, I've not decided yet. And I'm getting some things in place for the podcast and related stuff, such as the email list has to happen first. And then I said I'd be self-publishing anything I do. Well, this didn't happen at all. Life got quite busy. The job situation changed. I got hired on, but there was a lot of work, especially in the spring. And frankly, it felt like there was a lot of overhead from the lockdowns, because it's just it's a lot of mental energy when you're like, okay, what's going to happen next? And where you can't predict, it makes it really hard to think about what you're going to do next when you don't know what they're going to do to you next. So all that happened. And then on top of that, I had some pretty nasty surprise financial issues. I replaced both air conditioners and one of the heaters on the house this year.
Wow. That's a lot, man.
That's a crap ton of money. And, you're looking at it once that happens, first of all, it chews up a bunch of time and stuff because there's time periods where you can't sleep where you normally do because it's too hot. And that messes you up. And so it was something I just kind of had to put off for a while. I mean, I've got book ideas. I've laid out a whole bunch of stuff. And I've got one that really started coming together in my head this week. That's a really good idea. And I'm trying to decide whether it gets in front of the other ones.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. So we'll see where that goes.
All right. So my second goal was to start writing my story. I'd kind of gotten started with the poem I wrote for the creative group at church. And then I used it in the talk with dealing with depression. But what I meant was actually writing it down as a book. And so I wasn't sure if I was going to do a based on a true story kind of thing or autobiography. So that has been put on hold. I went through a lot this year. The emotional turmoil earlier this year around the breakup had me out of sorts for a little while. And so I spent some of the year just sort of dealing with that. And then my own kind of feelings and insecurities around that. I'm pretty much over it now, but I wasn't really in a mental state to start writing about past pains this year.
With the present one.
Yeah. And so I'm probably going to hold off on writing this for a while, as I need to be in a very healthy place to rehash those pains. Because the way I write is I get into that emotion, and I need to be in such a place that it's easy to come out of that because life is so good. So this one, life got in the way, life happened, and I didn't get to do it. And so I'm not going to continue to pursue that at this time.
My second goal was to do more extensive tech adjacent writing. And honestly, this didn't happen either. I had a pretty heavy workload for most of the year. I will say, though, that I did a lot more, documentation, a lot more writing specs, a lot more, just interacting with other people at work than I've done in previous years. So while I did not hit this goal, that need was pretty well sated by the day job. I didn't feel like I missed out on it. It was just no, it just all went to the job. So I feel reasonably okay with it.
So my third goal was to take on more of a leadership role at work. Because of COVID, I ended up becoming one of the team leads on the tech team at church, in charge of cameras, radios, social media, and just random stuff they needed done. At work, at the time of writing this, I was an advanced or our level senior developer, but I had been sort of the lead developer on a few projects. And I had planned to thrive in these roles and take on more leadership responsibility with the long-term goal of getting promoted to a lead position. Well, if you guys have listened to the podcast throughout this year, y'all know that I absolutely nailed this one. In May, I got promoted to a lead software developer. I did switch departments to get that promotion, but I'm leading a team of junior developers right now. Just so happened that's the team that I got put on. They just had 2 juniors, so I'm leading that for a different department. I really enjoy being in this role, as about half my time is spent developing software, and the other half is spent developing my team and their skills. I have weekly pair programming sessions with each of my developers where we will either pair program or we may work on an area where they need more training. Where we may just talk about, hey, here's some stuff that you need to work on. They may have questions or just want to know, like, okay, how do I solve these types of problems? So it's sort of a part mentor, part developer role without those annoying management duties. We have managers for that. And so it's actually quite wonderful. I really do love this job, y'all. I do.
Yeah. I had a similar thing happen to me.
Yeah.
So my number 3 goal for last year was to rework my home office to be more comfortable and usable. I said it was good then, but I need to quit being cheap and spend a little bit more money really making it and the old recording room more usable. I said I needed a new chair because the old one was a piece of junk, and it was reaching the end of its life. I'll just put it that way. I also said that this means getting a decent gaming system and probably a Mac for recording, along with getting possibly some more electrical drops and better lighting in the room. So I feel like I nailed this one pretty well, within reason.
You got a Mac for recording?
No, I did not get a Mac for recording because you got a Mac for recording and you still haven't set it up, and I wanted you to be the trailblazer. So the other thing, I kind of fixed a lot of my Windows issues that were coming up during the year. Mm-hmm. And I haven't had the problems that have made me go, oh, I've got to get a Mac right now. Like I could go buy one. Like I could drive over tonight and pay cash for what I want, but I can't justify it at this point because things are stable. Windows 11 is coming out, so I know that's going away. But for the moment, things are good. I did get a new chair. Let's see, what else did I get? I got a new surround sound system that actually supports Bluetooth. And so like I've got my tablet in front of me. I can play music on it all day. I can play podcasts and it plays through the main speaker system. So it's, good, high quality stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. I reworked my desk. I got a riser for the TV so that it's not, so it's like kind of centered in front of me. I also got one for the laptop. What else did I do? I did a bunch of work on the desk with like cable channels and stuff. So there's not wires sticking out everywhere. I bought a bookshelf. I rearranged the room slightly so the lighting is better. I haven't needed to change the ceiling lights yet. I might still do that, but yeah, like it's nice down here. I have no serious, like there's nothing I sit there every day and I'm like, oh, I need to fix that.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that, which is kind of where I was trying to get. So
awesome,
yeah,
dude.
that's a total win. And it wasn't much money. It was maybe $800 total.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just, and by the way, like 600 of that was a chair.
Yeah.
And 140 of it was the Bluetooth piece to hook my, well, I take that back. No, it was more than that because I bought the sound system. So it was more, maybe more closer to like 1,200, but still, like I was looking at, okay, I'm willing to spend 2,500 on this to fix it. And I got out for way less than half. So that was a total win. Yeah.
So my fourth goal was to join the praise and worship team at church. This has been a driving goal of mine for a while. I've been working on my guitar skills, focusing on efforts on rhythm guitar instead of, just learning riffs and licks. And I had the 2 tryout songs. So, and then my instructor had started working with me on sight reading. Anyway, if you guys have been listening to the podcast, you already know the answer to this one. I absolutely, totally nailed it. Auditioned for the praise and worship team in October. It was the first time I'd ever played with other people. Should have thought about that beforehand and gotten some practice in, but I still made it on the team. I'm in training now to be able to play with them on stage sometime next year. And you'll hear about that in a little bit.
My number 4 goal was to eat better. My diet was pretty bad last year. It was a little bit bad before COVID started, and then COVID hit. And, my wife, my daughter were in the house all the time. And if I was, going to go out at lunch to get food, it's like, oh, well, you need to get something for her too. And that doubles the price of going out for lunch. And so it's a lot of fast food.
Yeah.
And I gained some weight, and, cutting back on soda straightened that out. I think I may have kind of gotten a little bit of that back by way of beer here lately, but, it's the winter. So, a little insulation never hurt anybody. I do think I did a pretty good job on this. I bulk cook a lot more frequently. Like, I've got some better recipes. I've got a better process around that. And so like for instance, today at lunch, I ate chili that I made, early this summer because, ground beef was on sale, and I made like a 3-gallon stock pot of chili, and it was delicious. And so I've started kind of basing my goal on this around how many meals a week do I eat that I cook at home. And that number has gone up considerably, and the amount of time committed has gone down.
Cool.
So I'm pretty happy with that. I think I'm eating out more than I would like still, but it's not as pathological as it was.
Yeah, I get that.
And it's intentional.
That helps.
Yeah.
It really does. All right. So number 5 goal for me, new equipment to improve my home office setup. Will gave me the quad monitor for my birthday. I needed new desks and a chair because the one I had was at least a decade old, if not more. I'm planning to periodically purchase new office furniture and equipment throughout the year so that I have a solid setup by the end of 2021. So this was a success. I didn't get as much as I would like, mainly because I'm being kind of picky. I couldn't find the desk that I want.
Yeah, be picky.
Yeah. I did buy a new chair, spent about $600 on a really nice chair. I love this chair. It's great. Got the Mac Mini, got a couple other things for the office. So I was hoping to get the desk and a new monitor. Those will likely be next year. My next purchase for the office is going to be a KVM switch to make it easier to move between machines. So
nice. I've got a model one to recommend for you.
All right.
And I could tell you what it was, but I'd have to move crap on my desk.
Don't worry about it. Just text it to me later.
All right. So my number 5 goal was a digital reorganization. My goal was to move web hosting to Amazon, get my domains off of GoDaddy, consolidate email accounts, get my financial stuff managed a little bit better, fix my backups, consolidate password storage, self-host some apps. Like, I had a bunch of crap in this list. Like, this was not just one goal.
Yeah.
And I should not have written it down that way. And I identified a bunch of stuff that needs to be organized better because I was stuck at the house, and you're COVID bored, which is like a whole nother level past boredom. Well, I nailed most of this. My domains are definitely not on GoDaddy, which, they had a clear text password leak this week. So it's really nice to not be in that. I did not consolidate my email accounts because that scares the crap out of me, just because so much stuff is in there. I'm trying to figure out a strategy for doing that and moving it and getting everything together. And I'm not there yet. My financial stuff is managed way better. I've got a Mint account. I have, weekly plannings, basically, where I go in and I look and I see where I spent money this week and, what I spent it on, and categorize my budget, all that kind of stuff. So that's working better. I've got the NAS set up with several pieces of software that I use for various things, for tracking workouts, for tracking meals. I've got a Plex server. All that stuff happened this year. So basically, I not only nailed this, I went past where I had intended to go. Now, I will also say, when you organize your digital stuff, there's another phenomenon that you notice, and that is that it's not really a list, it's a sliding frame, because now there's a bunch of other stuff that irritates me. And so now I've got like a whole nother list that's just as big. But I got through this part. Yeah. As long as you know it's coming, you don't feel so dumb.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes perfect sense. All right. So my final goal for this past year was I was going to stop drinking in 2021. Spent the first half of my life so far not drinking, 0 to 20. And the second half doing so, 20 to 40. Or 21 to 40, I should say.
Uh-huh. I was there for some of those 20-year drinks.
I don't have a problem with drinking. I just want to give it up. Give not drinking a try. See how it affects my IBS, my mood over the course of the year. Who was going to expect the things that happened to me this year to happen? But, also it's a bit of a gimme because the praise and worship team has a leadership honor code involving not drinking. It's completely voluntary, but required to be a lead in the leadership role at the church. So, you don't have to give up drinking to go to church or anything like that. It's just sort of if you're going to, have the privilege of being on stage, you agree to this.
Yeah,
so
you deserve it.
Yeah, this was a raging success. Yes, I chose my words carefully there. I haven't had any alcohol all year long, and since I am a worship leader now, I won't be going back to it. Like I said, there's that honor code. It's a bit strict, but it's because we're in front of people setting an example. Honestly, I'm surprised that with all the other stuff I have done around the church that I hadn't been asked to sign it before this.
Yeah, it's been interesting watching you do this because you have, it has changed your mood and your approach to stuff. It really sucks at Christmas and your birthday because I don't know what store to go to now. That is a bit of a challenge. We'll figure that out somehow. So my final goal was to greatly increase my non-formal exposure to Russian language. I've been practicing a bunch during the week, but it was all exercises and stuff from books. And I wanted to start getting into maybe watching some shows, reading fiction, etc., since my vocabulary was at a point where that was realistic. This was a pretty solid success. My Russian teacher that I was practicing with, she stopped in March because life got busy and job situation changed around. And so I waited a month or two, and then I found another teacher on italki. And so instead of one class every week or 2 or 3 or 4, when she had time, it's twice a week for an hour. She does the whole class in Russian. And it's fairly, informal because you have a conversation and, I also have homework. I can do, I've completely lost my ability to write English cursive. I can write cursive in Cyrillic. I cannot do it in English anymore. I tried. It's gone. Yeah. So this was a win. I've also somewhat frequented a Uzbek restaurant because the owners there, speak English, or one owner speaks English and one does not, but speaks Russian. And so I've been able to sit down and actually order my food for myself and my daughter several times now, completely in Russian, talk to the guy about his grandkids. So that's pretty handy. As far as the reading, I am reading more. I have not really jumped into reading fiction. I feel like the vocabulary still has to get a little bit better because the kind of fiction that I like tends to have more archaic vocabulary in it, and I didn't think about that.
Well, hey, you could read some sci-fi.
I could, but then you get technical stuff.
That's true. It's true. Grab some Asimov.
Maybe, yeah. And I've watched shows. I've watched Legendo Kolovrat. I've watched a bunch of little short films and stuff on YouTube. I mean, I am trying to get pretty good exposure. I've watched a lot of talks and stuff. Putin, has done some press conferences and stuff like that. And I've gone through those.
That's cool.
Those are a little bit of a bear.
Because
it's not at the level I'm at right now.
Well, I get that. I got a friend in Albania who is a news broadcaster. She'll post stuff, and that's the only thing I can find in Albanian to watch. So yeah, it's a whole nother level than where I am. And you've been doing this a lot longer. So I can I get it, man. I really do. All right. So our network goals, we're going to rush through these so we can get into our goals for next year. First one was to break even and not have to pay for the podcast or developer launchpad out of pocket. Current output was around $500 a month. Most of it was for the editing. And we wanted to get to a point with sponsorship and Patreon donations where we were able to cover that every month. And we did for a few months this year, get it covered. We cut back on a few things. And then we got up to that point for a little while there. But just like any business, there are ups and downs. We had several months where we broke even and some where we did not. So we didn't set like we're going to break even this many months. So I'm going to call this a success because we did break even a few times.
Well, and we were above some too, which is, So the second goal, rebuild Dev Launchpad. There is a lot of potential there. And with me having gotten a couple of books out, there was definitely a good place for some ideas. I did not have the time to really work on this and give it the attention that it needed. The other issue was that because everything has gone virtual and stayed that way, it's kind of hard to do it in its old form, right? Like it needs to die and make something else. And we're actually going to close it down. We've basically informed all the current members on the meetup that, about it through email. We're going to change the structure from a meetup group into something else, something that is a bit more resilient to the changing world that we're in.
So the third goal we had for the network was to get into coaching other developers. This is something that both Will and myself are very passionate about. We're mentors. We're running the meetup group for a while that was literally designed to help developers in their careers. So we wanted to get into coaching, which was a success. We got our first coaching client earlier than we expected, really, which is awesome. We're really happy to have him. It's been amazing this year watching him grow from where he started to becoming a leader in his job. And it's been so awesome to see that and to like kind of be on the sidelines cheering him on. As that has been going through. So that was definitely a success. All right, guys, we finally made it to resolutions for 2022. Just like all the other years, we're going to bounce back and forth. I will start us out and then Will and then me and then Will and then me. And you know how this is going to go. So my first goal for 2022 is going to sound very familiar. It is to speak at a conference again. I miss conferences. I submitted several talks, but none were chosen. I'm going to take some time this year, review what was chosen at conferences, and write up a few talks that will meet the needs of conferences where I want to speak. So I'm going to look at like what got selected last year and write based on that. And I'm going to write up the actual talk, the whole talk, before I submit. I think that's been one mistake that I've made is I have not actually written the talks. I've written the ideas, and those don't always line up. Sometimes you get into writing a talk and you realize, hey, this is going a whole different direction than this idea. And I think that would be a better way to approach it. So that's what I'm going to do.
All right. My first goal is probably not entirely unexpected. That is to continue to increase my exposure to Russian language and get the ability to type effectively in it. I can already write, like block text. I can already write Cyrillic cursive. Typing, I'm still very much hunt and peck. And I would like to fix that so that I can interact with more people more quickly. And so that's the main goal for the year. I'm definitely getting a lot of verbal, spoken Russian. Like I was so nervous when that started, and now I'm just a chatterbox.
Nice, dude. Nice.
And Beej, I will tell you one thing that you notice when you're learning a foreign language is that your personality in the other language is not the same.
You sure about that?
For some reason, like it shifts you. Like, yeah, it's like the way you talk is different and the way you think is different. It's a mindset shift, and I'm not sure why that is.
Oh, I've been shifting around so much lately. I've become shifty.
You've always been a little shifty.
Yeah, but now I'm swifty.
Swifty, okay.
Little Rick and Morty in there for you guys who enjoy that show. All right, my second goal for 2022 is to run a 5K race. I have gotten into running this past year. I'm not very fast yet, but my focus hasn't really been on speed. It's been on increasing my endurance. Like at this point, I am halfway there. I can run 1.5 miles in 18 minutes. So I can run that without stopping. It's actually more of a jog. I'm pretty slow. But, I can jog that without stopping, which is really good because considering in May, I was winded after jogging for a minute. So I really put a lot of effort into it. And as sort of I'm going to run the entire 5K next year. And as a lofty extra, I'm going to start working on my speed once I get the endurance down. And by the end of the year, I want to be able to complete a 5K in under 30 minutes, which isn't that big a deal for any runner out there. But again, in May, a minute of jogging at a 12-minute mile winded me. So yeah, that is a lofty goal for me, and I'm planning on doing it.
Nice.
That's my goal number 2.
My second goal is to finish the developer creativity book that I'd planned. I kind of had this sort of scratched out at the beginning of last year. I fleshed out the plan during the year this year, and then life got in the way. And I want to get that out and actually, make this available to the audience because I really think it's got some pretty good life-changing advice in there as far as your creative pipeline and how to think about creativity. And I know Beach kind of understands where I'm coming from on that because he's kind of in the same boat. Like it's a really jarring experience when you realize how valuable that really is.
Yeah. So my third goal for 2022 is to get my Azure 204 certification. Started the courses on Pluralsight and actually got approval from upper management to spend some time on the clock learning. And they are trying to get approval to pay for me to take the exam, which is really awesome. I really think that's great. So I just have to do the work to prepare for it. And so I've started working on that now. My goal is to finish it by the end of next year and actually take and pass that exam.
So have you on Pluralsight, is there like a sequence of courses for that?
Yeah. Okay. There's a path specifically for it. And I've started going through that. So, but yeah, that is going to be one of my goals for next year is to complete that.
Nice. Well, my third goal is to get an Amazon certification of some sort for work, which will probably just be the cloud practitioner, given everything that's going on, and or possibly an Azure one. I don't love Amazon's platform as much as I like what I've seen on Azure here lately, as far as like the difficulty of getting going on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm kind of mixed on that, but I need to get the Amazon one for work. So that's something I pretty much have to do this next year.
Yeah, I follow that. My fourth goal is a little bit different than the others. This is to set aside regular, unstructured creative time each week. Now, this may be for creative writing, painting. I've actually been getting into drawing lately. I'm not very good at it yet, but I've started working on it. Guitar practice does not count, like actual practice, but sitting around playing my guitar, or even writing music will count. So the goal here is to set aside one night a week where I have nothing planned and I just allow myself to be creative. So much of what I do is specifically to accomplish a goal. I really have this bad habit of not keeping hobbies if there's not a goal attached to it. With learning software development and stuff, it started off as a hobby, but there was always like, all right, it's a hobby to build this or a hobby to build that. With photography, when I got back into it, it was so that I could join the creative team at church and then do other stuff with it. And now I'm actually getting to go out and do family photo shoots and stuff like that. And with guitar, it was to get on the worship team, and now it's to get on stage. And like I was actually talking with our worship director and her husband the other day. And I was like, we were talking about goals and stuff. And I was actually talking about this particular goal. I told her I was going to set having a hobby or something that is without a goal as a goal. So that I would actually accomplish it.
I like this goal a lot. I've been trying to kind of work this sort of thing into my schedule too. And I kind of have the same tendency. It's like, well, what's the goal for this? It's like, no, the goal is to not have a goal. And it's really hard to do that because I'm kind of in the same headspace.
Yeah. So this is relaxation and creativity without a goal. So no selling my art or anything like that. I may like display it or something at one of our creative things or art shows at church, but this isn't like oh, hey, I am going to spend time painting to become a good painter so I can sell it. No, that's not what I'm doing here. This is all about just doing something for fun and relaxation, because I don't do that. That's why I don't really play video games. It's because I don't see the point in them other than to enjoy them and have fun. And I'm like, well, why don't I do something I enjoy that also moves the needle forward? And I've been doing that so long, I'm getting a little burnt out on stuff.
Yeah. Well, there's some things later coming in my goals for about that.
Yep.
So my number 4 goal was to get a more solid financial plan together. I got a lot of stuff kind of fixed. I mean, I could track things, and I've realized that there's not as much structure as I'd like and as much planning around things as I would like. I feel like I'm probably leaving some money on the table. I'm leaving some opportunities on the table, and I need to quit doing that, because like I end up saving a bunch of money. Right. Like I don't spend everything I live on for the most part.
Yeah. He switched to Geico.
No, I switched to being cheap. Like I don't, it's like pulling teeth to get me to spend money, even if I need to, like a new office chair. You remember how long I deliberated on that?
Mm-hmm.
And you pile that money up and you pile it up in a checking account. It's not exactly what you want to do. I mean, I do have some investments and stuff, but like that's not together in the way that I want it to be for where my goals are. And so one of the goals for this next year is to actually kind of get that structured better, possibly even talk to Lucas here. My wife kind of wants to do that too.
I think I should. I think that'd be really good. I've honestly considered talking to Lucas too.
Yeah.
About some stuff. And so, yeah. No, I think that's a good
he's
idea.
really got his stuff together. I mean, I'll listen to his podcast. It's like he's solid. It's just I got to get there from here. And there's some stuff too that I feel like I ought to fix before I call him.
No, you don't have to, because he's got a plan for every level. So wherever you are in your financial journey, Lucas has a plan for you, man.
Yeah,
he really does. You just go ahead and call him. You should just go ahead and not right now. We're on the podcast, but you should just go ahead and call him.
It's more like, hey, like I know I'm being dumb.
Yeah,
like I probably like let's fix the obvious stupid stuff first, and the organization of things, because like a lot of times it's like, well, I don't really know how much I spent on X. I know it's less than expected because I'm cheap, but that's not really a life goal. So
all right, so now my number 5 goal is to improve my focus by spending less time watching television and more time reading. I mean, y'all know I like to read, but I'm actually going to limit myself to an average of 10 hours a week of television. And, when you say it, that sounds like a lot, but if you really look at it, that's less than 2 shows a day. And I also am going to read a minimum of 24 non-school, non-podcast, and non-work related books. That doesn't mean they are going to be fiction. They can still be non-fiction. A lot of nons in there. And they may be about development or leadership, but they're not going to be like required. For example, I am reading this How to Lead When You're Not in Charge book that is for work. And it's also going to end up being some podcast episodes, I'm sure. That doesn't count because this is a workbook, like a book for work. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, so, and no textbooks and stuff, but 24 books. That's simple. That's 2 a month. I can do 2 books a month. I could probably read more than that if I really put my mind to it.
Especially if you get into audiobooks.
Yeah. I listen to a lot of podcasts, so I don't know if I have time for audiobooks. But if I drive some, I will. So
yeah, I got the Audacity subscription. And then when I burn down to the bottom of the podcasts that I have, then I'll start catching an audiobook and I'll finish one, and then I'll go back to the podcast because by then they've refilled.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So my number 5 goal is to eat more home cooked meals and fewer restaurant ones, specifically fast food. This saves me money, saves me time. It's better for my health. Like I've got some food sensitivities, and sometimes I get a hold of stuff that, it causes my hands to break out, those kind of things. It's like, it'd be better if I avoided it. The basic idea here is that I want to stop defaulting to going out to eat for meals, unless it's something where the extra money, time, and detriments to my health are actually worth it. to some degree. So like this probably means no Burger King, right?
Yeah.
But it might mean, hey, I'm going to go to the Thai place and get Thai food because I'm really craving curry.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. I follow that. All right. So my final goal is to learn to say no better than I do now by putting an emphasis on the activities that I value, the separate from church, work, and the podcast. Those are my kind of three focuses. Like the three big things in my life are church, work, and podcast. If my time is taken up by what I want, then I'm more likely to say no to the things that will take away from what I want to do. I'm going to go to the gym every weekday. I'm already doing that, but that's going to be part of this goal. And doing something on the weekends to just kind of be active and move around. Set aside time every day for Bible study and prayer. That is a big thing for me. I also want to practice my guitar every day. I'm going to be working myself up to. I'd love to be at an hour of practice a day. That would be great. But I'm going to work myself up to that. And finally, I want to review Albanian some way, somehow. Just get some Albanian in front of me every day, either by reading, doing homework, or watching something in Albanian every single day. So those are the three big things that I'm going to use to kind of fill that time, so that I'm doing the things I want to do, and it's easier for me to be like, I'm sorry, I just don't have time for that because I've got this other stuff going on.
Yeah, because when you're stuck with other people's choices, it's easier to get stuck with more other people's choices. Yeah. And that kind of leads right into my last goal, which is to actually take more breaks and play more games, read more, those kind of things. For the last, really since we started the podcast, maybe even a little bit before that, everything has been really, really hyper focused on productivity. It's kind of the thing you were discussing where it's like, hey, I need to have some like unstructured creative time that doesn't have a goal. Mine is more like unstructured relaxation time that doesn't have a goal. I mean, the creativity is probably going to be in there realistically because it'll land there anyway. I don't have to bring it in; it'll show up. But this is something I've really noticed, and it's out of balance, and it is starting to push me towards burnout. And I'm seeing the signs of it, and that's something I've got to fix this next year, or there's going to be problems.
Yeah. All right. So our network goals. First one: be in the black at the end of the year. This past year, the goal is to break even, and we did that for several months out of the year. In 2022, our goal is to actually make a profit by the end of the year.
Right. Our second goal for the network is to move the podcast website off of WordPress, and that was a goal before for a while too. WordPress has served us reasonably well for a while, which is why we haven't jumped off of it. But it is kind of limiting, and it requires periodic maintenance to avoid threats. So, you get a 0-day vulnerability that hits something that you got to go deal with it right now. And I want to get those kind of things out of my life because I'm not here to answer the fire alarm. And WordPress is definitely one of those. The other thing is it's not as performant as we would like, which is hurting us in Google search. It's hurting us just across the board. And it's hard to troubleshoot that. Now, we do have a new version of the site in the works, but it is going to, because WordPress is so tightly tied into the way we do everything else, because it's been there since the beginning, we kind of have to fix our editorial process to make this streamlined. And along with that is also looking at it and going, hey, are we doing things in the easiest way? Because a lot of stuff that we did sort of crystallized organically over past 5 or 6 years. And so BJ and I have some conversations coming up about that, about how that flow works.
Speaking of conversations, goal number 3 is to change Developer Launchpad to be more content-based and not an in-person meetup group. We talked about this a little earlier with shutting down the meetup group for Developer Launchpad. We have a few ideas that have not been solidified, where we're going to focus on creating content to help developers advance in their careers. The goal is still the same, is to help developers advance and move forward in their careers, either into the industry or up within the industry. It's just how we go about that is changing, and what we're doing with it is changing as well. So now let's get into the theme for 2022. Take it away, Will.
So the theme for 2022 is resilience. In the past 18 months, kind of getting up on 2 years by the time you guys listen to this, most people got at least one really nasty lesson on the importance of resilience, whether it was because of a job loss, a major change in a relationship, potentially a death in the family, or because their entire social life just got upended. Everybody kind of got a dose of this over the last 2 years. However, the fact is that life changes, and it sometimes changes a lot in a very short period of time. Fragility is the natural state of things. It takes systems planning and preparation to overcome that natural tendency so that you can rely on the systems that you have when the underlying assumptions become unstable.
Yeah. Now, also note that resilience doesn't fix things that are fundamentally wrong. It just kind of helps to smooth out the disruptions that occur when surprises happen.
And so that's what we'll talk about.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in the episodes coming up, and we're also going to talk about what resilience is not and what resilience is in the aftercast on Patreon.
Closing it up, setting goals in public is valuable. Not only does it show people that you're serious, but it helps a lot with your own motivation. In addition, public goals also let other people know what you're up to, which can help you get good advice and even result in making new contacts that can help you out. Goals are also critical. If you don't set goals for yourself and work out how you're going to attain them, you'll end up achieving somebody else's goals instead. Finally, goals are also useful in hindsight. As you get older, you kind of start to notice that you have patterns of both success and failure in the way that you achieve your goals, and you can adjust in future years accordingly. So that pretty much wraps us up. Beej, what do you have this week for us for tricks of the trade?
So guys, goals can be deceptive when you don't have the right frame of mind. If you're too focused on where you want to go, then you're not going to see how far you've come along and you're going to get discouraged. However, if you're too focused on what you've accomplished, you'll become stagnant, constantly focusing on how awesome you are and not how much more there is to go. I was at the gym the other day and I look over and the guy lifting next to me, I was like, a little bit thinner, a little bit, more muscular than I am. I was like, yeah, man, that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going to be. And I go along a little bit and I noticed there's another guy kind of heavier set and stuff looking at me. And I'm like, I bet that guy is thinking, that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going to be. So the trick is to always be looking for what's coming next, but still living in the moment and celebrating the victories you've had so far. Because I looked at the guy who was like a little more heavy set and I'm like, it wasn't too long ago I was there and I've worked really hard to get where I'm at now. But I'm not over there like that guy, so I'm gonna keep working till I am. And I'm sure that guy is looking at some of these other like gym rats going, man, one day I'm gonna look like that.
Right.
And that's it. It's like you have those goals and just remember, look at where you've been and how far you've come along, but also where you're going. That's pretty much all I got.
Stand by for Titanfall.
If you have a question or comment, please email us at neckbeards@completedeveloperpodcast.com. Our theme music is an excerpt from Stand By for Titanfall by Pure Bells, available on SoundCloud and licensed through Creative Commons.
For references, show notes, and extra tips and insights, be sure to check out the website at completedeveloperpodcast.com. Help us make the show possible by supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/completedeveloperpodcast. You'll get extras, including a weekly aftercast where we discuss the topic of the week and bonus material with some of our patrons.
You can also follow us on Twitter at CompleteDevPod, like our page on Facebook, and follow us on Instagram to keep up with news about the show. Join the conversation anytime via Slack by signing up at slack.completedevelopernetwork.com. Thanks for listening. See you next time.